It's the most unique show you'll hear today. Now, here's Steve.
Hold everything. This microphone's giving me some issues here. Let me see if I can get it fixed. Okay. All right. There we go. All right. We're cooking with Crisco now. Welcome in. It's the Steve Marston Show, and we are live today, and we are ready to take your phone calls at 888-901-5454. Let me give you it again. 888-901-5454. You can always shoot me an email, steve@salemmedia.com. And of course, we are streaming, as I say hi to the camera over here to my right, all over the place on the interwebs. We are on like 70 different pages on about 10 to 12 different platforms. So if you want to contact us and leave a comment where you're watching, what's going on today in your life, we would love to hear from you. Now, today's another one of those days where we're going to kind of split things up among the markets because we're on two great radio stations, AM 630, The Word, deep in the heart of Texas in San Antonio, as well as Faith Talk 99.5 in Little Rock. Here in Little Rock, you are going to get to hear a cool conversation I have with a lady named Dana House. She's amazing. We'll talk to her. She's an author, and she's also a fitness guru. So we're going to be hitting a lot of those kind of issues. But in San Antonio, we're going to do something a little different, a little bit out of the box. We talked about this idea as a staff yesterday and thought, okay, we'll try it and see if it works. It's a 15-minute challenge we're going to have for those of you, not only in San Antonio, but all of the wonderful AM 630 listening area. So hope you'll get ready for that. That should be, we hope, fingers crossed that it's going to go well. And as another special treat, we're going to be joined in a little bit by our buddy, David Odell. David has become basically the permanent guest host. Remember, if you're as old as I am, you remember Johnny Carson used to have a permanent guest host on the Tonight Show. When Johnny was out, it was always Jay Leno. Well, it's kind of what's happened here as things have evolved here on the Steve Marston Show. Our buddy, David Odell, who's a pastor and an author and a podcaster himself, has basically filled that role. Well, he is at the Southern Baptist Convention in Orlando, and he's taking in all of the stuff. He has been to the different meetings. He's been in the actual voting sessions. He's been to the alumni breakfasts and all that fun stuff. And we're going to talk to him about just the vibe down there. And I don't want anybody getting the wrong idea. Well, why are you always spending so much time with the Southern Baptist? What's the deal with that? The main reason is because so much of what the outside world sees and thinks about those of us in the church happens because of the Southern Baptist Convention. Every single year, it makes headlines. I mean, when other times will you see papers like the New York Times and the Washington Post comment on what's going on in the church circles? It's mainly during the weeks where the Southern Baptists are having their convention. So I figure it's kind of timely and newsworthy, and we'll be getting to David coming up here in the next segment. So I want you to hang around for that. But I wanted to get started today by talking about how when things are in conflict, how do you handle that? Now, we've spent a good time in the past talking about this, but this is, again, something that's come up, not in my life, but in somebody very close to me's life, a conflict between two believers, a conflict that threatens to not only destroy some friendships and some working relationships that are close, but also threatens a whole group of people. And I don't want to get any more specific than that because I haven't really been given permission to talk about the details, but I will bring it up because I think it is something that we all will come across from time to time, especially when we're talking about dealing with other believers. And when you do that, we have to make sure that we are prayed up in the situation before you even go in. Because I know the person that I'm close to, she keeps telling me that this continues to run through her head. All these different scenarios, all these different things continues to consume a lot of her waking moments. And as she's going through this, it's difficult. It's really hard to maintain a semblance of wanting peace, wanting unity, but also having a hard conversation, because we as believers sometimes have to do that. Because I know personally, I would go, all the way around my elbow to get to my wrist to avoid a confrontation. I don't know if you're like that or not. Some people aren't. Some people are easily motivated to go get in someone's face, even as a Christian, right? And sometimes that's needed. Let's just be honest. You can't sweep everything under the rug all of the time. So the conflict comes up. How do you handle it? What do you do? Well, in this case, this person that I know and the person that is having all these different issues with not just my friend, but others, was to call for a lunch. Let's go to lunch and let's talk about this. Let's talk about what's going on and try to hammer it out. Because, see, here's the thing. As believers, we can do a lot of wrecking if we're not careful. If we stand our ground to the point that it doesn't matter what, I'm going to do this, that can be problematic, And when you're talking about, a ministry, a group of people who are looking to you as a part of a leadership team, and that leadership team is having some internal debates and squabbles, it can make it where people start drawing sides and start saying, well, I'm with this person. Well, I'm with this person. And then all of a sudden now, instead of one or two people with their feelings kind of hurt, it affects the whole group. It's like what Paul talked about, how sin is easily spread. It's like it talks about, a little leaven in the lump just makes the whole thing rotten. And that's what they're trying to avoid. And I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I know that some of that leadership team in that particular group are getting together for lunch. They're going to try to hash things out, see from each other's points of view. Maybe somebody needs to step down. Maybe somebody needs to apologize. Maybe somebody needs to just take some time away. I don't know the complete and details of how that's going to turn out, but I know it's something that is very emotional and very you have to walk kind of with work with kind of kid gloves, because you're walking on dangerous thin ice, because you don't want it to blow up. You don't want it to just go all the way. However, I will say this. If it should come to that, I think where people can't just come to an agreement, they can't agree to disagree, they can't come to some kind of mutual conclusion, there's scriptural basis to just leave, one person just to leave. I mean, think about what Paul and Barnabas did on that missionary journey that they were going to go on. They couldn't agree of whether to take John Mark or not. And it really caused friction. It really caused a lot of headbutting. And so instead of blowing the whole thing up, they decided to part ways as friends. And I think that's the main thing we have to look at whenever it comes to it. We'll have more thoughts about this a little bit later on. It's the Steve Marston Show, and we've got plenty to come. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a flash. Yep, here we are live on this, what is it, Wednesday already? Yeah, June 10th. Thank you for being a part of the program. And here coming up in just a couple of seconds, we're going to be joined by our buddy David Odell. He is at the Southern Baptist Convention, kind of going to get a live update as to what's going on there. So while we're waiting for him to join us here on the program, I will tell you about our teaming with Alan Jackson and Alan Jackson Ministries for the Ministry of the Month. He is a wonderful Bible teacher. You hear him every day at 6:30, and then again you in San Antonio, and then you hear him on Faith Talk 99.5 in Little Rock at 12 noon. Okay, it seems David's having problems getting connected with us here. Let me see if I can do something real fast about this phone system here. Okay. And all right. So as we continue on, we want to let you know that you can be a part of this. We've got a couple of great resources that he's going to be giving away to listeners both in Little Rock and in San Antonio as a part of this. So what we want you to do is to keep listening. We're going to tell you coming up tomorrow how you can be a part of our Ministry of the Month and win some great resources from our buddy Alan Jackson and his team there. Such great people. We're so thankful to have them as partners with us here on the Steve Marston Show and at Salem Media as well. And trying to get this silly phone to get back into its working condition here as we try to, there we go. All right, so that should be all out of the way. And then again, as we wait on David to get in contact with us, I do want to go back to that, what we was talking about at the first of the show, and that is, if you have that conflict, you've got to be willing to walk away, especially when it goes to brothers and sisters trying to do their best, trying to do everything God has called them to do. It can be hard and it can be difficult, but if it comes to a point where there's just absolutely no common ground that could be found, then what we've got to do is we've got to separate, and we've got to make sure that the ministry as a whole, in this case, doesn't get affected by it, or at least the effects are minimal, and we can try to get that solved in the most godly way possible. So if you are just joining us, this is the Steve Marston Show, and we are waiting on our buddy David Odell trying to connect with us here to be able to tell us about some stuff that's going on at the Southern Baptist Convention. They did elect a new president at the SBC. I'd like to be able to get David's comments on that. I think they had the vote this morning, and it was a pretty well-received election of Pastor Willie Rice from a church in Clearwater, Florida. He was elected as the next president of the SBC. The results of yesterday's election came out, and there was 11,000 messengers that were registered, and over 9,000 of them casting their ballot for this president. So not too bad a deal. And to get to know him a little bit, it says that the Center for Baptist Leadership Executive Director William Wolf called Willie Rice's victory. It says it proves that there is an appetite in the SBC for uncompromising leadership that both honestly addresses the problems facing the Southern Baptist Convention and a champion of our gospel work. At CBL, we have called for new leadership in the SBC, and that is committed to conservative renewal and we believe Willie Rice is that man for the job. So that's how it went yesterday with the Southern Baptist Convention. It doesn't look like our man David Odell is going to be able to connect with us today. So that's a shame because I was looking forward to getting his take on it as well. But there's been a lot going on, of course, with the Southern Baptists and the whole thing about the women pastorate constitutional amendment and all of that. And yeah, it's been definitely something for sure to have been watching from afar. And like I say, I was hoping to be able to get David's comments and be able to have him on to talk about it in more detail, because as a minister in the Southern Baptist Convention, he's definitely someone that's got some skin in the game, as you might say, and he's also someone who is very much in this camp of Willie Rice as being the new president. So anyway, we'll look forward to maybe connecting with David here in just a little bit. We'll have a lot more coming up here on the Steve Marston Show. We've got our dad joke of the day coming up, and then we're also going to be splitting off here in just a second with our different markets. Obviously, we're on in San Antonio and we're on in Little Rock. So in Little Rock, we've got Dana House is going to join us. She's been on the program before. She's an author, and she's just an amazing person that does so much for her community, but she's also kind of a fitness guru. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we can continue to be active and continue to have a lifestyle that gets us in at least a little better shape, even though we're crazy busy like everybody is these days. We'll be talking to her about that. And then those of you in San Antonio, we're going to try a 15-minute challenge, and we'll see how this goes. We talked as a staff yesterday about this, about how we could do something kind of out of the box, something a little bit different. So we're going to throw it against the wall and see if it sticks. So we're going to hope that you'll participate in it. We'll have all the details here coming up, and then we'll all get back together after this next segment, and we'll see what else is in the headlines besides news from the Southern Baptist Convention. And we'll also have the best video on the internet coming up as well. It's all for you on the Steve Marston Show, and we'll continue after this. All right, welcome in. It is the Steve Marston Show. We are so glad that you are joining us here today. We've got a special guest with us. Her name is Dana House, and she's been on the program before. She's an author. She's a podcaster. She's also a fitness instructor. So, Dana, hey, welcome back. It's great to have you here.
Hey, Steve. It's great to be back with you.
All right. Well, let's talk about a little bit about because I wanted to have you on anyway because you're such a great guest, and then I noticed that you are doing that you are a certified fitness trainer, and I got to thinking,
Right.
There's so many of us once we reach a certain age that we think, man, got to start getting back into shape, right? And
Right.
especially as believers, we want to take care of the one and only body that God has given us, but it's just so hard. What kind of advice do you have for people who maybe have the will, but it just doesn't seem like they have the time?
Right. As is with all of us, it's very difficult to feel like we have time to prepare the food that we need and to get in the exercise. But honestly, if you'll just start somewhere. It doesn't take big effort. We did a study with our teams, and it was talking about how people got to the Olympics making percent changes in their lives. And I think sometimes we get ourselves overwhelmed because we feel like I've got to go to the gym 5 days a week. I've got to change my eating. I've got to cut all of this out at once, that we just get completely overwhelmed and we give up. So it's not about desire. It's about the fact that people want it, but they just get so overwhelmed. So when I'm working with clients, we just get on into some of those some routines maybe that they're not used to. We talk about how to plan ahead of time, because what we do know is if we're starving to death and we're super big, we're going to grab the first thing in our face. And so a lot of getting better is just that planning ahead of time. And then once we've worked on the nutrition side, ease into the exercise, we don't have to jump in and do all of that at once.
So the nutrition part is probably the most important out of the two, nutrition and exercise, because I've heard different things. But I've heard that you can't necessarily exercise your way out of a bad diet. Is that true?
That's exactly right. And you'll hear people all the time say, well, I've got to get out of here and get to the gym now to eat off everything that I just had at dinner. And it really doesn't work that way.
Exactly.
We need all of it. Obviously, the exercise is important too. But just like you said, we've got to learn the nutrition side if we really want it effective.
And really, when you look at that sounds so intimidating, because it sounds like, well, I'm going to have to eat salads for every meal, and I'm going to have to drink, protein
every day.
Celery and beets and everything else that sounds horrible. But really, that's not true. It's just finding the right, and I think I'm using this term right, the right nutritional macros, right?
It's all about the way that we combine our foods. And when I was about to get married, 5 weeks before our wedding, my husband at the age of 26 was diagnosed. The only thing at that time that I had even heard of diabetics was that they go blind and they legs, and so my first, this is a bad deal, and we're never going to have another Snickers, we're never going to have another dessert, playing in my mind, I've got to keep him alive. And it was so overwhelming. But what I've learned over time is really the way that he needs to eat as a diabetic. It's the way that we all need to learn to eat in moderation. You don't give up everything that you love. Like for me, you can go to McDonald's, you can go to Burger King, those times when you're traveling and it's difficult to offset whatever you choose. So if you have a cheeseburger and you love French fries, well, get the cheeseburger, take off the bun, eat the French fries, small order of fries. And so, that's not something that you're going to do But when you're on the road and you're really trying to get your weight loss goal, you know, you don't have to eat every meal. You can have those moments. If y'all are having a cookout, you can learn how to mix and match your foods to make that doable to where you can still live life, because nobody's going to live on some kind of diet the rest of their life. And it just sets people up for failure.
Dana House is our guest. She's not only an author, but she's a certified nutritionalist. And we're talking about the need for us to get in better shape and to be able to have the more time. Because see, in the stage of life that I am right now, my first grandchild is on the way, right? So it's one of those deals where, okay, you know, I never really thought too much about, well, you know, being 50, whatever. Now it's like, I want to see him grow up. I want to be around. And so now it starts to think about, you know, really getting back into doing the things that I should have been doing probably all along. And the thing that I've learned in this, as I've kind of just started back on this journey, Dana, is that it's not as intimidating as I thought it was going to be, because you're right. It's so much about choices and how you plan things, because really I don't eat anything that I don't want to eat, but like you say, it's just having a plan of attack to be able to get all of your calories, your carbs, your fats, and your proteins, all kind of making sure they make sense.
Right, exactly. And it makes a difference on the way that your food is absorbed. So if you're going to have like a nighttime snack too, you know, going protein and fat versus having your potatoes as right before you go to bed, you're going to want to lean more toward your protein and your fat. Have those kind of carbs earlier in your day. So again, it's not that you can't have a baked potato ever again, but it's about choice when you're going to have it and what you're going to partner that with. You know, we just got back to church camp. We sat down at the table. They had fried chicken fillets, mashed potatoes, corn, a roll, and then a dessert. Every one of those were what we would consider like a fast carb. And so if I'm going to have mashed potatoes, mix that with some grilled chicken, maybe some broccoli and cheese. So it's all about mixing those right foods together, and also about the time of day that I'm eating them as well.
Well, let me ask you this. When you talk about the importance of tracking your food and tracking what you're eating, because sometimes we think, you know, I'm not doing so bad. And if you actually kind of put it in one of these apps, you think, oh, wow, I really had a lot of carbs today, or I had a really more fat than I should have had. Talk about how important it is to find one of those apps and to track your food.
Yeah, sure. And one of the easy ways to even do that now with chat, you can type in what you've had in a day, calculates everything. It's free, it's easy. We don't have to set up our calories and all of those things like we used to do. It helps in that. But that's absolutely the truth. We tend to pick, and you know, we sat down with a bag of chips and we're not got it going 10 chips and I'm going to put the bag away. We set the whole bag. And so the more that you are,
because we're usually doing something else, you're watching television.
Exactly. And that's the other part of this. We mindless eat. So it's really, you take the portion that you need, even making dinner, know what you're supposed to have, and then take the rest of it and put it in the refrigerator. 2 to 3 hours later, if you're still hungry, for it. But most of the time, find that in about 30 minutes, you were actually full, but we don't give enough time to see that we were done. And that's how we end up overeating. So if you just take that, put it away, you're not picking and going back to refill your plate. And if you tell yourself, if I'm still hungry, I'll eat in 2 to 3 hours, that's not like feeling like you have to go the rest of the day. You know, that really, that's a mind game of it. Feeling deprived, because once we feel we really do give up. And just like with the diabetics, if they feel like they can never have the things that they love, then they go back to eating what they want and just give up. But all of us have to see that it's okay. We can have about the moderation and the planning ahead, like we said.
And Dana House is our guest. She's a certified fitness and nutritionalist, and she's also an author, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But let's talk about the exercise piece a little bit. Again, it's going to the gym can be intimidating and don't know what to do. Is there something to kind of jumpstart that we can do maybe at home without any weights or out any equipment to be able to start to do a little bit of something?
Yes, and that's really what it's about. Start somewhere. Pick something you enjoy. If you every single day, you're not going to do it. Think about what is something that I would like. And you don't have to do everything at once. If you're aiming for, you could start at 12 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week going for a walk. It's a great place to start. Very doable, not overwhelming. And then you can start to build on from there. It doesn't even have to be every day. But once you get to, a goal of maybe walking 30 minutes a day, a week, something like that, you could even bust that up. You're like, well, have 30 minutes in my day. Can you walk 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at lunch and 10 minutes when you get home? Even busting that up, you're still getting that in, and there's benefit on moving just in that way. I just recently worked with my largest client, and I say that as a 6'6" man. And I get a lot of women, and so I have this Goliath man, and it's been amazing. His family has a history of related issues that have caused early death. And so he's still a fairly young man, but he's beginning to see concerning. And so he reached out to me, and he's down in clothes that he hadn't seen in years. To see, it really doesn't matter your style or female. When you're following these same kinds of patterns, we use our hand. If you've seen the measuring food, which makes it super when you're out to eat. So as a smaller female, my hamburger patty is going to be this big. Well, his hand, for his size is bigger, So I could really help him and his wife at the same time, because just with their structure, they were learning how to measure out their food just by using their hands. So so I had a job where he was sedentary. And so we talked about different times when he could pause and take a 10-minute walk. And when he's driving, when he stopped to get gas, get that walk at the gas station. So finding ways just to fit that in your day. For moms, I couldn't go to the gym anymore once I had a baby. So as he was learning to potty train and things like that, if he's on the pod, do some push-ups. Could I do some sit-ups? Could I do something while I was waiting on him or while I'm cooking? Can I do some squats and lunges? And you may feel funny standing at your stove doing a few squats, those things in, even when it's just part of your day routine. I homeschool now. So sometimes I get Bauer ready on his work. He's doing his worksheet. I'm standing beside him. I'm doing some bicep curls and some shoulder lifts. And when he has a friend helping him, and I'm going back, it may take me 4 hours to get doing it that way. But you kind of have to say, where can I just work this in my day? And once you start doing that, you feel good about yourself too. It makes you proud, and that encourages you to do it a little bit more as well. So, and then just the general things, take the stairs, park a little farther out, all the things that everybody about in general. Right now, my son likes to ride a bike. We'll take homework breaks, and he'll ride the bike, and I'll run beside him. So it gets to be something that we can do together, but he exercises and I am too. So trying to just fit that into your everyday life. Clients to carry some weights in their vehicle if they're traveling a lot, and they can stop, they do some warm up, and then they do few lifts, but they've got it with them while they're traveling. So just work it in throughout your day. That's okay too. You don't have to have a 45-minute segment at the gym to be able to get some exercise in.
No doubt about it. Such good information, Dana. How can people reach out to you about maybe getting in contact to see how you can help them on a more one-on-one basis?
Yeah. Well, they can definitely email me and dlhouse20@gmail.com. I am on social media, Dana Yingling House, if they want to find me. Those are two great options to reach out and find me.
That's awesome. And before we let you go, we've got just about a minute left. The last time we had you on, you had just released your book called Jesus Had a Little Lamb. It's a children's book. How has that been going in the response that you've seen?
So I have almost sold 2,000 copies. I'm close, and a little over a year, which is fantastic on a first book. So excited about that milestone. But you don't know is here just probably any day now, my second book will release, and it's called "I Miss You While You Were Sleeping," and it is the journey of my heart baby in the hospital, watching he slept and waiting to wake up.
Wow. We'll have to listen. We'll have to have you on to talk about that book more in detail coming up in the next few days. Okay. Because that sounds awesome. And we are just completely out of time right now, but it is so good to catch up with you again. That's Dana House, everybody. More of the Steve Marston Show coming up. Stay with us.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve.
Why did the hunter miss his mark?
Why did the hunter miss his mark? He was not aiming directly at it. That's really bad. So bad.
This is a dad joke of the day here on the Steve Marston Show. Why did the hunter miss the target? Because he was not aiming directly at it. Yeah. Not the greatest one ever. Welcome back. It is good to have you here as we roll on, and we are live on so many different platforms. Live video happening right now on 70 plus pages around the interweb. We're also on AM 630, The Word in San Antonio, as well as Faith Talk 99.5 in Little Rock. And we welcome your phone calls. We think the phones are working. 888-901-5454 is the number. 888-901-5454. Or you can shoot me an email, steve@salemmedia.com. And as we take a look at other things happening today, this was really pretty cool. I was very, very pleasantly surprised to see this. There's a guy named John Lennox. And if you don't know about John Lennox, well, then you need to know. He is a wonderful Christian apologist. He works and is a tenured professor at Oxford University. And he is just the quintessential British guy, just gentleman. You know, he's an older fella. He looks like exactly what you would expect from someone like that, and has the great accent. He's incredibly intelligent, incredibly articulate, and he's debated some of the biggest atheists / agnostics in the world over the past few decades. And there's a guy named Stephen Bartlett, and I don't know if you've heard of him. I haven't really, but I know that he is kind of a famous name in the business world, and he does a podcast called The Diary of a CEO. And he invited, of all people, John Lennox to be on his latest episode. And I just thought, wow, that's kind of cool. So I started to dig into it a little bit. And this story is pretty fascinating because apparently Bartlett, the host, is an agnostic. And he told John Lennox that the most compelling point Lennox offered for the Christian faith during their podcast was not any real particular argument, but rather it was Lennox's peace and contentment that he had. So just think about that for a moment. Someone who is openly atheist, openly agnostic, doesn't see so much the argument that the Christian is trying to make the case for God, but he sees the man's demeanor, and he sees the man that has Jesus shining out of him, and it makes a difference. And we talk about it all the time. Now, sometimes we're not going to be interviewed by a famous guy that has a podcast, but those people that work with you, those people that you see at your kids' ball games and things, they're going to notice it too if you're letting the light shine. And this is something else Bartlett said. One of the most compelling arguments for God you've presented is not necessarily what you've written in your books or necessarily anything that you said. It's actually you. This is where he was talking about the peace and contentment piece there. And he said he presented Lennox with a series of tough questions about Christianity, including some that Bartlett himself has wrestled with. And he says, I find myself on the fence. This is Bartlett speaking. I would love for you to convince me. I mean, it's not your responsibility to do so, but where does that journey of believing come from for someone like me? And then this is what Lennox answered. If Christ is really God, whom he claimed to be, then he will make everything real to you. And of course, Bartlett would go on to ask about Christians and the viewpoint of suffering. And Lennox said, why does God allow suffering? Well, it certainly doesn't tell me that he's remained distant from human suffering, because he has become a part of human suffering himself. He said, that's not the answer. There are no simplistic answers, but you see, once you remove God, there's no hope. It's completely irrelevant. It's good stuff there. So I will post a link to this video podcast with John Lennox on the Diary of CEO, hosted by Steve Bartlett. I think you'll find it really interesting. And then there's a couple of other stories about guys living out their faith here. Coach Rack from the Savannah Bananas, you may see him on social media. He does a phenomenal job. You'll see him before games giving devotionals, just kind of off the spur of the moment. Out there, you see the crowds filing in at the Bananas baseball games. And he was recently given an award at the K-Love Fan Awards. And he was asked how he would encourage the younger generation in the church. And he says for believers to prioritize God's presence above everything else. This was his quote. He said, I encourage the church today to enjoy the presence of God above all else. And he explained, despite experiencing many of the dreams he once hoped would come true through baseball, that nothing compares to spending time with the Lord. He said, so many of my teammates have felt the same thing. Really cool stuff there. And then one other really interesting note, Donnie Wahlberg, former New Kids on the Block, great actor in several television shows. He told a podcast host, the son of Reynoso, the MMA fighter, that committing his life to Christ has been the greatest accomplishment of his life. That's encouraging to hear as well. That was on, like I say, MMA fighter Christian Reynoso. His son has a podcast, and Reynoso even captured it on a video Instagram post and said, what happens next was beautiful because Jesus is alive. And Danny Wahlberg is evidence of that. How about that? That's really neat. Again, seeing some of these people live out their faith. And I hope that's an encouragement to all of us that we need to be doing the same things as well, to live out our faith in front of those that desperately need it, whether they realize they need it or not. That's what they're looking for. That's the hope that they are lacking, and that we, on the other hand, have on the inside of us. So it's up to us to share it. Yes, with words, but also, and maybe first and foremost, and maybe more importantly, with actions. That's how someone will see Christ in us. Okay, one more break, and then we are back after this. Stay with us. Yep. Welcome back. The Steve Marston Show continuing, and Faith Between Our Ears is the weekly Bible verse we learn together, and it comes from Psalm 100, verse 3. Know that the Lord himself is God. It is he that has made us, not we ourselves. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Learn that verse, get it on the inside of you, because that's where faith comes in, to knowing God's word, especially when things go kind of sideways on us. And we know how easy life can do that to us. So let's make sure we learn that verse, Psalm 100, verse 3. Okay, best video on the internet today comes from Josh Howerton and his recalling of C.S. Lewis's conversion. This is good. Let's watch.
So these three guys are taking a walk. C.S. Lewis, J.R. Tolkien, and Hugo Dyson. This is literally the road where what I'm getting ready to describe happened. C.S. Lewis is talking to J.R. Tolkien and Hugo Dyson about, he was fascinated with, they called them fairy stories. We call them fairy tales, they call them fairy stories. And he starts noticing, like, man, in all these different cultures and all these different times all over the world, they all have the same fairy tales, and they all came up independent of each other. The brave prince slays the dragon and gets the girl, or the king from a far off country comes and kisses Sleeping Beauty and awakens her from the sleep of death. And they're just like, man, all these fairy tales are the same. So they're on this walk on that road right there, and J.R. Tolkien, a Christian, begins explaining to C.S. Lewis that the reason all the stories are the same is because there's a story that's underneath every story. And that the Bible says that God has, quote, put eternity into the hearts of man. And that the reason those stories resonate with the human heart is because those are the stories that are faint echoes of the true story underneath all the stories. And he explained to C.S. Lewis that that's the gospel, that the gospel is the, quote, it's the true myth. And when he said myth, he didn't mean something that didn't happen. When he said myth, he means like something that has explanatory power for the world. All the movies that capture people and the stories, if you look close enough, they all have these echoes of the gospel. So J.R. Tolkien explains this to his one more, C.S. Lewis. And then I'm going to read to you, this is a letter that C.S. Lewis wrote later in his life about his conversion to Christianity. Just 9 days after Lewis's conversation with Tolkien on Christ being the true myth, Lewis took the final step in embracing the divinity of Christ while riding in his older brother's motorcycle sidecar on the way to newly opened Whipsnade Park Zoo in Bedfordshire. He recounts, and this is what Lewis said, "I know very well when, but not how, the final step was taken. I was driven to Whipsnade one sunny morning. When we set out, I did not believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and when we reached the zoo, I did. Yet I had not exactly spent the journey in thought." And he just took that final step and spent the rest of his life as a very bold.
Wow. What a great story. I'd never heard that. That's the journey that C.S. Lewis took to coming to faith in Christ. Amazing. Thank you to those of you who gave in San Antonio to our preborn campaign during our 15-minute challenge. Thanks to Dana House for joining us in Little Rock. But thanks most of all to you for listening and watching today. It's been a lot of fun. We're back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. I hope you will be too. Until then, adios.